Let's talk about tech history, Jonathan.
Yes, this week we're doing April 5th through the 11th.
Nice.
First off, on April 5th, we have Satan.
Satan.
Could it be
What? You're
Satan?
talking about Satan from the Bible?
Well, Dan Farmer, what we talked about in Tech Birthdays, also pops up again for his security administrator tool for analyzing networks.
Yeah. Let me share my screen so we could bring some of that stuff up. Could it be Satan? Well, Dan Farmer looks like Dan Carvey from Wayne's World.
Yeah.
Wayne's World, Wayne's World, rock on. So it's not Satan from the Bible, but it's a security administrator tool for analyzing network, or a packet sniffer in short.
Yes.
And it didn't please the church lady one bit.
Next, we have April 6th, Windows 3.1 released.
3.1.
Whoa, old school.
This is like super old school. I mean, I don't know. You don't remember it. I mean, look, it was a super VGA 800 by 600 pixel monitors.
Wow.
And that was like high resolution at the time.
I feel like it looked like that left side of the Windows, how it's all pixelated.
Well, that would take up the whole screen, basically.
That's funny. That would be the whole screen right there.
Yeah. They had such a hard time getting drivers for a lot of the controllers and stuff. Oh my gosh. So in 1992, okay, they released Windows 3.1, which probably has a fraction of the code base that Windows 10 currently has, at $149 a pop.
Wow. Wow.
Right now, you can buy Windows 10 for, I think, just over $100, maybe under $100. I don't know. That's insane. That's crazy.
They sold 3 million copies the first 2 months.
3 million copies. So that'd be 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 times 149. They made $447 million. Or is that billion? No, $447 million.
Wow.
That's $500 million. That's insane. And the guy was only 19.
Yep. With $500 million?
Oh, no, but that was 75. So this is almost 20 years, maybe 17 years later.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So, yeah. So. April 7th is an interesting one. I actually worked on an IBM System 360.
Say what?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't like work on the hardware, but I had to access the data from a System 360.
Oh, I was going to say, you touched this machine right here?
No, I did not touch that machine. They wouldn't let me get near it. The thing cost over $5 billion to develop. I don't even think you could buy them. I think you can only lease them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, so in today's standard, I forget, your brother Gerard was talking about hard drives. They're like miniature hard drives that are like a gig in size, and they go inside the motherboard now.
Mm-hmm.
And prior to that was eSATA, which was a different interface that allowed for faster communication between a hard drive and the motherboard. And then prior to that was SATA. And then prior to that was IDE, or enhanced IDE, and then IDE. And then along with IDE, they also had SCSI, which was a different interface. It was SCSI. And I believe that these 360s, I'm trying to find if it actually says what type of hard drive, but the type of hard drive that these type of machines would use were they were called DASD drives. Those were like even before me. I think I started with computers when IDE was available. So that's pretty crazy.
Cool. On April 8th, we have John Scully joins Apple.
Oh,
Apple's dynamic duo.
let's talk about John Scully. John Scully came from Pepsi Cola or Pepsi Company because he wanted a person who was in charge of an important product and, you know, like brought notoriety to a product. And he's like, well, I'm going to bring John Scully on board. And let's look at April 11th. So this was 1983. Okay. Let's look at April 11. 2 years later, almost exactly 2 years after joining Apple, John Scully asked Steve Jobs to step down as the head of Macintosh division.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
So, yeah, Steve Jobs hires the guy to bring his company to a higher level of notoriety and gets fired for that. Because John Scully had just the right of zeal of political power to get rid of him.
Wow. That's pretty crazy.
That is crazy, huh?
Jobs invented Apple.
But he didn't invent the iPhone.
Oh, that was John Scully? Did he invent it?
John Scully?
Yeah.
No. I think it was the engineers that came up with the idea of putting the computer in the phone. And Steve Jobs, like, that's a stupid idea. No one's ever going to want a computer in the phone.
Yeah, I guess a lot of people didn't like Steve Jobs then, huh?
I tell you, Steve Jobs, it was one of those people that, like, for example, you grew up with me as your father. So you knew what it was when you guys got in trouble. You're like, oh crap. It's like, we're not going to get hit, but we're definitely going to face some kind of punishment that is not going to be pleasant. And dad's just gonna, it's like my system of reward versus punishment had the pendulum swing that went from one extreme to the other, right? It's like you were either really good and I rewarded you really well, or if you were bad, it's like, oh man, there was like no middle ground. It was just like the pendulum just swung completely to the other side. You're like, yeah, nose against the wall. For every minute of year that you're alive, you're going to be on that wall. You know, if you were 3, you got 3 minutes, and that felt like a lifetime, you know, for a 3-year-old. And so, but you knew what you had coming, right? And so you look back at it, you're like, it wasn't too bad. But you tell that story to anybody else, they might say like, oh no, that is so cruel. It's like, I would never do that to my child, or, you know, things like that. And but you know me, you know that it's like you guys had clothes on your back, food on the table, a roof over your head, toys galore. I mean, we had like every single popular. I mean, you guys were like 5 years old. You guys had like 13-year-old toys, you know, toys that belonged to a 13-year-old. I had to sit there and train you how to use them.
We played games all the time.
And then when I would punish you guys, that's like, show me how to play your game. Like, no, Dad, you're gonna mess up my high score. Like, show me how to play your game. You're like, oh. And so yeah, so Steve Jobs was like that. If you knew him, you knew what he meant. You know, in one of the movies that they created about him, and you know, the character that portrayed him, they were, he had just came back from Next Computers. They had just hired him back, and he asked his designers, like, what are you doing here? And that question can come across in several different ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you didn't know Steve Jobs, you're like, what am I doing here? It's like, I'm working for you. Can't you see? I'm trying to make something. But if you knew him, you would say, I'm here because I believe that I can make a difference in Apple products. And those are the types of things that he wanted to hear. But his questions, or his, you know, his his way of communication was just so abrasive, you know, and it either scratched you like some nails, or it combed your hair very like a nice comb or brush, you know, one of the two. But there was nothing like in between, you know. So you really had to know the guy in order to work with him. And I guess John Scully just didn't know him, you know. And so cool.
Yeah, that's all we have in tech history this week.
Excellent. That was a nice discussion about Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
I like it.